Hello, my name is Hanna Lynn Roth, and I will be your host for today on Our Ventura TV. With me is Adam Clark, live studio and multi-stylist drummer, and we'll be talking about his endeavors as a drummer and how it led him into the Ventura community. Hello, Adam. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Thank you. We're glad to have you here. Well, first off, I'd just like to ask you, you're fairly new to the Ventura area, and you came from Phoenix, Arizona. When and why did you decide to relocate in here specifically?
I got here a little over 6 months ago, and I was in Phoenix for a little over 15 years. I started going to college there, and then I just stayed there, and I worked full-time as a musician, and I really loved it. But then I grew up moving around as an Army brat, so I kind of had the moving bug again, and it was a good time in my life to make that transition, and also the weather played a key factor in that.
Definitely. And it's everything kind of like in one little compact town, you know, weather, beach, community, small town, but it has all the big city stuff right nearby.
Right.
So you call yourself a multi-stylist drummer. Please elaborate a little bit more about what styles you do play.
Okay, I went to college for jazz music at Arizona State University. And I like to call jazz the MMA or mixed martial arts of music, whereas if you learn jazz, you can learn other things a little more easier, whereas, like, say, if you learn something like rock, you necessarily can't learn jazz easier. So jazz is kind of like the one style that has more styles like built into it. But the styles I like to play and that, you know, I'd like to think that I'm good at is, you know, jazz, Latin, funk, fusion, and reggae is mostly what I do, or what I like to do.
So your studies as a jazz musician set up those core, solid foundations, and everything else is just kind of like an elaboration onto, say, those basic knowledge, rules, and fundamentals.
Yeah, it gives you tools. Learning jazz music gives you a lot of tools to learn other styles as well.
Very, very cool. And so for someone like me who knows nothing about drumming, what would be a good exercise? What would you recommend for me to kind of start out with to learn possibly these little steps?
I would recommend, first and foremost, just having fun with it, especially as an adult. Like I tell my adult students, you know, they're just in it for the fun. They just want to play with bands. But I would start off with rudiments with you, which are like scales to a piano, but for drums. You know, you start off with double stroke roll. It's just like right, left.
Okay, and so right, left. You just keep going like
and you
that.
just repeat it over and over, and then eventually you can do a roll.
All right, cool.
And then, so I would start you off on rudiments, you know, and I'd tell you just, you know, warm up with that. I'd give you maybe 3 basic rudiments: single roll, double roll, and paradiddle, and then I would have you start off there, and then, you know, you could go to whatever you wanted after that to have fun with it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's about, having fun. Yeah, and so you can do that anywhere. And the competition as a musician is immense. So what do you feel makes you a more valuable asset or someone who's unique?
I've had a lot of experience. I played 5 to 6 shows a week for the last 15 years when I was in Phoenix. And also my mother taught us how to sing. All of her kids had to sing when we were learning how to talk just as toddlers. So she's a piano player and singer. So I was getting ear training without even knowing it. And it was just sinking in, you know, and I didn't even notice till I got older. A lot of drummers, especially if they don't go to school for music, that's kind of like a drummer's weakness, is hearing harmony changes and hearing melody.
Right.
But since my mother instilled that in me, I'm very grateful for that. I consider it a huge blessing. And then I went on to take piano lessons as well as a child. So I got a melodically developed ear, if that's a word.
Yeah, that's excellent, because even for people who do study music as a keyboardist or pianist, it's still hard to develop that ear. And since you got it at such a young age, it just kind of becomes instinct.
Definitely, definitely. I compare it to a child that grows up in a bilingual household, and it's where they just kind of learn 2 languages, you know, and they don't even notice really till they get to school, and then they're like, hey, wow, I know 2 languages, cool.
Yeah. So you owe it to your mama, right?
Definitely. Thank you, Mom.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to invest in your children, because they'll take those tools no matter what, somewhere, you know, it'll apply.
Definitely. And when you learn something very early on in life, it tends to stick with you. Like,
Yeah.
you never forget how to ride a bike. But if you try to ride a bike when
point.
you're 20 years old for the first time, it might take you like 6 months to learn.
Okay, so on that note, what groups or artists have you performed with in the Ventura area?
In the Ventura area, I performed with Tony Janata, who's a jazz singer. I performed with Pablo Plasencia, who is the leader of the Ventura Jazz Collective. I performed with Paul McCellum, who's a great guitar player, plays a lot at Squash Grapes in Ventura. I have a new group I started called Surf Ghost, which is an electronic group of keyboards and drums, electronics on both instruments.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It's an instrumental fusion and funk group that's kind of the answer to the cover bands, to where we can play kind of for the party crowd but still stay original.
All right, oh cool, so you have that spice in there, but it's still enjoyable and danceable to people, and you can just have fun with that kind of a culture at the same time.
Yeah, definitely, and it's a futuristic sound. And then I also have my trio, Adam Clark Trio.
Oh, cool, very cool. Well, I look forward to hearing some of those projects. And from these different people you've participated with, any memorable experiences? I know I personally have seen you play a couple times, and I saw you at the Good Bar once, and you and one other drummer were playing at the same time. And I couldn't even tell, because you guys were just spot on, like, together, and I thought that was really awesome to have that technical skill to just have it in your head.
I guess, you know, both studying the same instrument, we've had, you know, similar upbringings, and, you know, just making a decision on the spot to, because you can go both ways. You can kind of contrast each other, or you can play together too, and both work out really well. So I guess at that moment we were both deciding to just go together.
Yeah, well, that's very fun, and kind of that whole element of jazz is just kind of playing by ear, right?
Right. It's a lot of improv. You still follow a basic chord structure, but in the end, it's different every time, and that's what makes it to where you can do it your whole life and not get tired of it.
All right, very cool. And so we obviously know you do live performances. Tell me about recording and studio experiences that you've had. Is there any major similarities or differences between the two?
Yeah, there's similarities, as in you're still trying to make a song for an audience, but there's a huge difference too in where you're really kind of under the microscope, and you know, they can rewind tape and be like, hey, what'd you do right there?
Get really nitpicky.
yeah. And you really learn a lot about what you need to work on as an artist coming out of the studio. But I've been on as a sideman on a lot of albums, and I have my own album as well, a full-length album that's called Phoenix Mixtape Volume 1. Came out in 2007, and it was a compilation of a lot of bands I was working with at the time, eight different bands. And it showcases a lot of styles of play.
All right, cool. So they're gonna know, like, hey, you were a 16th rest off at that point. You know, they go back and listen to it. So, right, that's kind of like the training, the hardcore training of it.
Right.
And so that kind of leads me into the next question, though. As a studio musician, because I know live it kind of goes back and forth, but when you're working with other people in that environment, sometimes it's like, is it best to know how to read music, or being able to sight read? Does that help play a difference?
It definitely does. It's definitely an advantage, especially in the studio. Most of the times you're going in there on somebody else's project, and you know, there's no rehearsal or anything. You know, so if you can read music, it's definitely an advantage to you know, just like in any field of work, the more things you can do for somebody, the more reasons they have to hire you. So it's definitely good, but at the same time, I like to memorize things as much as I can, and I like when other people do too, so they're not kind of stuck, you know, like,
yeah, inside.
you know, there's nothing worse than like looking over at somebody and they're kind of like this, trying to read music and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But there are guys out there, I'm an okay reader, but there are guys out there that are like, can just read.
There's always going to be somebody who's
really
better
good.
than you.
Oh yeah,
But just
lots of people.
practice and practice, you know. It's
Right.
just experience. Okay, so any future projects that you have coming up, particularly in the Ventura area?
Definitely, I got a lot of dates coming up. Should I mention dates or?
No, just maybe
Nah.
just some specific ideas that you have for the future.
Yeah, I definitely want to go after. I want to play in a lot of festivals. Festivals are my favorite environment to play in. I did a lot of that in Arizona, and I've done a little bit of that overseas. And festivals are just a great time for everybody. You just go, and a lot of times it's a family thing. You bring your family out, and so I'm definitely going to be going after those and seeking employment with a lot of festivals around here during the summer.
Well, that's cool. And I know there's a lot of nonprofit kind of organizations and things like that you can also get involved with for festivals in this area, and that always leads to bigger opportunities down the road. You know, you make those kind of connections and whatnot, relationships.
Definitely, and I've always noticed since I got here, there's a huge support system for live music. It's kind of like in the culture here, whereas like, what are you doing on Friday night? Well, we're going to check out this band, and not just one band. They're like, we're going here first, and then we're going here, and then we're going here, and they're like, check out like 3 different live bands at the same time, and they'll advertise for them. And there's websites out there like Ventura Rocks, and things are always posted, and people are always excited about seeing live music. I really like that about here.
Yeah, and everything in downtown, like you said, it's like throughout the whole weekend, it's like it's compact, so you can go from one to the next. And see a bunch of different people, and there's always stuff going on, so that's very, very cool. Any words of wisdom you'd like to share with our viewers, maybe someone who's just beginning their artistic endeavors and journey themselves?
Yeah, definitely. I would say keep all your contacts, and everything in the business is about relationships. So you always want to keep relationships. No matter how long it's been since you've seen somebody. I've gotten called for things where someone met me just one time and they call me 5 years later. So you always want to keep all your business cards, don't throw them away, and just develop, I would say just develop relationships, because the relationship you have with someone is always going to determine what happens in the business sense.
Right, because depending on how reliable you are and likable you are, that makes a difference between whether, I guess, getting, noticed by other people if they like you, and you have a certain amount of skill. I won't say talent, because I think, it's more about skill and practice at your craft rather than having just pure talent. You have to be able to be reliable in that way. So never giving up, right?
Exactly. I mean, Michael Jordan wasn't born knowing how to hit a jump shot. He worked his butt off, so.
Yeah. All right, so fun final question. If you could work with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
It'd have to be John Coltrane, my favorite musician of all time.
Cool.
So, and his drummer, of course, happens to be my favorite drummer too, Elvin Jones. So that would be my dream, if I could go back to like the early '60s and play with John Coltrane. That would be awesome.
What kind of style is that?
That's
for people who
jazz.
don't know, jazz? Okay. Very, very cool. All right. And so, Adam, is there a way that the viewers could find out more information about you, website or so?
Definitely. My website is LosAngelesDrummer.com, and you can find background information on me, future dates, recordings, testimonials, and everything that's normally on a website.
Okay, so that's www.losangelesdrummer.com.
Yes.
All right, and that's all the time we have left for today. Thank you very much, Adam. My name is Hanna Lynn Roth, and thank you very much for watching Our Ventura TV.